What's going on, y'all? Episode 24, Let's Be Real podcast, man. And look, got a great episode for y'all as always. We got some football for you, got a little bit of NBA towards the end. Obviously, NFL playoffs coming up, so got some games this week that really matter. And so that's what we're going to start with, looking ahead at those games. But first, look, as always, you know what it is. We got the wine. And so today I'm actually finishing up that Bordeaux box from Costco. So the last wine here is Chateau Materre, and that's the Bordeaux Superior. Um, Solid wine, it's kind of been kind of the running theme with this box is, they're cool. So give this one about a 6.8 out of 10. It is much more Merlot heavy than Cab heavy. And so with this one, like right out the gate, right when you taste it, definitely got some like dark fruit, berry flavor, and a little bit of vanilla. So all in all, yeah, about 6.8 out of 10. And then because it's the last bottle out of that Costco box, man, just overall on that Costco box, I would say for the value and the wine you get, $30 for four bottles. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Man, you're basically paying $7, $7, $7.50 for four bottles. I think it's worth it, especially if you're just looking for some. If you haven't tried Bordeaux's, but you want to get a little taste of some different ones, definitely think it's a good thing to go for with that. But look, man, let's get into it. Week 18 of the NFL. And look, man, we're gonna do it a little bit different because obviously we don't have too many. We have a few games that really matter. We have a lot of teams resting starters, and so we'll start off with a couple of the big games, um, and then kind of move into how some of the other games fit into kind of different headlines. And so we're going to start off, though, man, with a game that really matters with two teams that are both coming out to get a dub. And that's Bengals and Steelers. So both teams still with something to play for. Obviously, Bengals playing for their playoff lives. This game happening on Saturday, by the way. But Bengals playing for their playoff lives. Steelers playing for either the division or for seeding in that wild card spot. So no real way where they're going to be rest, and neither team resting anybody. And so what that means is one, obviously hugely important. I would say for the Bengals, it's literally do or die for the Bengals right now. So they need a win. Um, but for the Steelers, we're going to start with them because while it's not do or die for them, like obviously they're going to be in the playoffs. This is a big game for them because you're going into the playoffs and you've had question marks around that offense. And what better way to get right than going into the playoffs than playing the Bengals? Like this is the team you want to be playing when you need a get right game on your offensive side of the ball. And so, um, really interested to see how the Steelers are going to kind of show what they have on offense. Because again, like without George Pickens, their offense is very just almost non-existent. And even with George Pickens, it's very dependent on George Pickens. And so want to see if they can get that offense going because if they can get that offense going, obviously that makes them a tougher out in the playoffs. But my guess is they don't get that offense. The offense looks a lot like it has the whole year. And so don't see that getting right, which is, again, why I've been a big non-believer in the Steelers this year. But from the other side of it, man, the Bengals. And look, we talked just like we talked about. That defense is terrible. And so, I just got to see some fight out of them. I mean, like I said, you're playing for your playoff lives. Like, this should be the best defensive game that they have had all year. If they have any shred of trying to get into the playoffs. And with that, I mean, obviously we know what their offense can do. We know what the Steelers' defense looks like. That's going to be two heavyweights going at it. But I want to talk about, because it's been a big thing all week, a big theme as far as, are the Bengals this really dangerous team if they make the playoffs? And that's what kind of the theme, like I said, of the week has been with them. And I'm here to push back on that a little. So now, while I get it, look, can a team with this incredible offense and bad defense win a playoff game, win a game? Yes, absolutely. Like, would I pick them to win a game? Probably not. But look, offense can get hot, and we've seen that Bengals offense get crazy in games. And so while they can win a game, I don't really think that makes them dangerous in the playoffs, right? Maybe makes them dangerous for the first round, that wild card round. But we're talking about the playoffs as a whole. Look, the Bengals are where they're at for a reason. And look, I'm not saying that their offense isn't great, but look, let's look at last week when they played the Broncos. Like, it kind of gets lost in the scuffle there that they had a chance to win that game, not only in regulation, obviously, but also like in OT. They look, the Broncos got stops on them. Like, that offense is great, yes, but it's not like this unstoppable force. Like, we saw the Broncos last week get stops on them, and we've seen them at times where, like, yeah, their offense doesn't look like this just monster juggernaut that we think it is. And so I think part of that is, obviously Joe Burrow having this incredible year. So taking nothing away from Joe, like, he has been spectacular. But even when we look at his year, which we are saying is like incredible and spectacular, like, he's not going to pass for 50 touchdowns. He's not going to pass for 5,000 yards. Like, it's not like he's having he's having a really good year, but I think because of just where we see the stats for some of these other quarterbacks, we're thinking he's got having this just monster year where he's not. We saw, look, and it's tough and it's a little bit unfair, but it's what it is. He is now he's going to be compared with Patrick Mahomes his whole career. And look, when we saw Patrick Mahomes with a terrible defense, we saw him put up 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, and go deep in the playoffs. That's just not what I see from the Bengals, and it's not what I see from Joe Burrow. And again, I'm of the belief that Patrick Mahomes is by far the best quarterback in the league, but that's not everyone's belief. And so when you look at things like those things matter. Like, we've seen Patrick Mahomes in this situation go deep in the playoffs. And we're watching the Bengals in this situation and Joe Burrow in this situation try to claw his way in and it's not even really up to him. So to me, I don't think they're dangerous in the playoffs. I think now, look, again, can they mess around and beat a Bills team in the first round because of just it's a shootout? Of course. Whoever gets the ball last kind of thing, of course. But would I pick them going past that? No. I wouldn't. I don't think they've got a team that's constructed in a way that they can. And I don't think their offense is so elite that it can make up for that bad of a defense for multiple games in the playoffs. And so, look, next game we're going to, and this one is kind of weird because one team is going to have some playoff implications. The other team is bad. And that's the Bears and the Packers. And so, biggest thing with this is obviously Packers fighting for seeding. Thing I need to see from them is I'm just like, I need to see Jordan Love play well. Like, simple as that. Like, I need to see it. Like, he's had a couple games where he has just not played well. And I mean, if they're going to have any hope in the playoffs, look, I know Josh Jacobs has been great for them. He's been running the ball amazing, and they've been leaning heavy on that. But look, Jordan Love has still had his opportunities, and he has looked pedestrian. And it's tough because with the way the league is now, you have to have a quarterback that can go out and win games for you. But Jordan Love has also shown that when you need him to go out and win games for you, he can do it, but he can also throw those picks. But it's something that I've said about Josh Allen a lot in the past is you almost have to take the good with the bad with it. Like, I would rather, and look, y'all know I'm not a big Packers believer, not a big Jordan Love believer. But if you're going to win in the playoffs, you're going to have to just live with the fact of, like, we're probably going to have to either let him bring us there or go down with the ship he's sailing. And so, biggest thing I just need to see him getting back to playing well, just because after these last couple weeks, it has just been bad. And the other side of it with the Bears, man, it's less so about the game. Um, First, I want to talk about now being rumored as far as in the coaching. So obviously, for a while, it just seemed like Ben Johnson was like the guy, right? Now you have Pete Carroll coming out saying he wants that job. We talked about that last episode. I don't really think it's a good fit. I don't think the timelines match up well with that. And again, I'd rather an offensive coach. So in walks the newest rumor for there is Mike McCarthy getting a little bit of tread going as far as possibly going to the Bills if he decides to not return to the Cowboys, or if the Cowboys decide not to, re-sign him. Either of which I would say is a high possibility. So as far as Mike McCarthy, is it a good fit? Is it not? To me, no. Like, to me, it's just not. Now, granted, do I think that Mike McCarthy could come in and, get that offense going? Probably. It's got a lot of talent on it. It's got, Caleb back there, very talented young QB, a lot of talent on the outside. Offensive line needs work. And we've seen Mike McCarthy with a good offensive team. We saw it last year with Dak, MVP numbers. We saw it, in the last few years with the Cowboys, top offenses in the league. The reason I don't like the fit is really just boils down to I just don't believe in Mike McCarthy. And so if you're the Bears, to me, what it depends on is what's your goal? Is your goal to simply just get the offense rolling and maybe make the playoffs and that's it? Or is your goal to really, build and establish a culture and possibly have a chance to take it far into the playoffs over the next few years? And so I think that last part is really where it separates Mike McCarthy and Ben Johnson. Because granted, Ben Johnson is a complete unknown. We have no idea what he's going to look like in a head coaching position. But I know what Mike McCarthy looks like in a head coaching position. And I know what he looks like in the playoffs or in big games. And to me, when we look at the Cowboys, man, under his tenure, yes, they do really well against bad teams. But in games that matter in the playoffs or games that matter against like big time teams, there's mistakes and they play bad. And it's coaching mistakes, player mistakes, and I just don't think Mike McCarthy is a culture guy. Like, I think he's a guy where if you have a culture, he can come in and be that offensive coach for you. But I don't think he is like coming in. I don't think he's a strong enough personality as far as a coach wise to come in and set this culture. And again, all this is unknown for Ben Johnson. We don't know what we're getting, but I would rather roll with Ben Johnson as far as the possibility of what he can be than kind of playing it safe with McCarthy. And look, I would if the Bears sign McCarthy, I get it. You're playing it safe, you know what you're getting. I completely understand that. If I'm running the Bears though, my goal is I want to be on par with these other NFC North teams in the next couple years. And I think the only way you can do that, it's not with Mike McCarthy. I think it's got to be with Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson being a good hire. Like, he needs to hit. And so, to me, I still say go with Ben Johnson. But I do think Mike McCarthy, if you're looking for just a safe option of, look, we just want somebody to get in here, provide stability, and get the offense rolling, I think Mike McCarthy would be good for that. Second part I want to talk about with this game, man, though, is as far as the Bears and Packers go, is Caleb. And really just the offense entirely. I think the Bears should rest them. And we're going to get into resting players versus playing them. But to me, with the Bears, and look, I've been big and I've been going back and forth on this as far as, man, do I really want to see Caleb out there just to get him another NFL game of experience? and, allow him to kind of just keep growing. But at the same time, I'm leaning more towards resting him, and why I think they should rest him is because the last thing I would want is for him, and I'm not even talking about a major injury, but for him to get nicked or do something, or, obviously we pray not a major injury, but if anything happens where he's going into the offseason and it's, oh yeah, no, he's going to have to do some rehab. He's going to have to take I want him going into this offseason healthy. I want my offensive weapons going into this offseason healthy. And I want the offseason just like, let's work on your game. Go work on your game. Come back ready next year. And let's make sure he gets a full offseason of get in there, start training, get to work. Because the last thing I'd want, and we saw it even with, to a lesser extent, like some quarterbacks like Brock Purdy, for instance, where he went out with the shoulder injury, doesn't really get that full year, that full offseason. We saw it with Joe Burrow as well. Doesn't really get the full offseason to work out, train, and be ready for the upcoming season. And you can see slower starts with it. And so I'd prefer you sit those guys, let them work in this offseason, and come in ready for next year. You're not playing for anything. And so that would be my advice as far as to the Bears. And it leads me to my next point, as far as, because it's been a huge topic over this last, week or so. And it's resting players or playing players in these meaningless games. And you see a lot of people on both sides of it. I heavily, especially in the game of football, like, to me, it doesn't make sense. And I know, I'm back in my day, everybody played. You're getting paid to play, and you should be out there every game. And so here's my defense on that. First of all, it's not like the players are making this. So the players aren't making this decision. So the whole people who are like, oh, you're getting paid, you should be playing. The players aren't making this decision. This is usually the GM, the owners, the coaches who are making this decision because they're invested in them. And the last thing you want is your investment to get injured before you go into the real part of your season. And so, from a standpoint of you get paid to play, like, I've seen a lot of just talk about that as far as on shows, Twitter, everything, man. And that's, I think, it's a total misconception. It's just a lack of understanding that it's not the players making this decision. The next thing is, look, again, if you're going into the playoffs, there's no reason, if you're locked in, no reason you should be playing your players. We've talked about it with the Lions thing, like getting rest going into the playoffs. Like, there's a reason why these guys try to get the 1 seed, try to get that bye. Yes, it gets you to the next round, but it also gives you a chance to get your guys healthy or keep them healthy. And so, to me, again, it's literally in the whole kind of what it is in meaningless game. Like, why play in a meaningless game? To me, again, I get it. All the OGs, man, y'all are tough, walked uphill both ways in the snow and barefoot, and I get that. But it's just, look, y'all are the ones who told this younger generation it's all about championships. And if that's what it is, then why would you not want to be rested when you're going for a championship, especially if it means you sit in a game that has no meaning to you? So I just wanted to give a little bit of context on all that. But next, man, moving into the MVP. And kind of what we're going to focus on here is why I think Lamar has possibly a chance here to steal an MVP. Now, again, y'all know how I feel about the MVP. I think Josh is still going to win it. But we're going to start with this Ravens game as far as reason number one, right? So Lamar obviously playing because they need to lock up the division. And so playing against the Browns, who, good defense, really good defense, but offense, they're starting Bailey Zappi. So good chance, this game's over before it starts, right? And the thing why I think there's a chance Lamar can steal it is, one, if he does only play, like, let's say he only needs to play a half or 3/4 because they blow him out. If they blow him out, chances are he's probably playing well. And if he's playing well, means that passer rating is probably looking crazy like it has a few times this year, where I think even last week he had like a 140 rating. And so with that, he's got a chance to break the all-time pass rating record held by Rodgers. So it now gives his season kind of a historical precedent as far as for an MVP. Next, he gets 45 more passing yards. He becomes the only player in history with 4,000 yards passing and 800 rushing yards in the same season. So again, giving him that kind of like historical context around, okay, we can now justify giving him the MVP. You know, he breaks the passer rating record. He's the only player ever to have 4,000 passing yards, 800 rushing yards. Like, it makes it that you can make it make sense. The next thing is, when we go into this Bills and Pats game, man, Josh Allen's not going to play too much. At least that's the plan. And so, again, they're not playing for anything. Josh is really just going in there to keep his starter streak alive, or starting streak alive, you know, of consecutive starts. And so, with that, you got to think, once he steps on that field as the starter, whatever his numbers look like, I'm going to guess it's probably, if he plays a quarter a series, unless it's one of the greatest quarters ever, his numbers are going to take a hit. So his yards per game, you know, passing yards per game, passing touchdowns per game, you know, all these kind of per game stats are now going to take a big hit depending on how much he plays. If it's a series, you know, there's a chance that it takes a huge hit. If he plays a quarter, still a good chance it takes a hit. But so then his numbers are going to come down. So it's going to be, there's now going to be kind of even more of a gap between that Lamar's numbers per game and Josh's numbers per game. And then lastly, with the Eagles. So the only other guy I think who really has a legitimate chance at this MVP, Saquon, going for that rushing record. And it has now come out that he is going to be sitting. He's going to be resting. And look, I know it's bad because I just spent a whole section of this talking about why you should rest your players. And look, if I'm the team, if I'm the GM, and my guess is this came down from the GM because it doesn't seem like a Sirianni thing to do to not have the player go for it. He seems like he'd be like, yeah, let's get it for him because we're going to show him that we don't need it, that we don't need the rest. And he strikes me as kind of a Dan Campbell kind of guy. So my guess is this came directly from Howie that, nope, we're resting the starters. Unfortunate because it really seemed like some of those offensive line guys were like, no, we want to go for it. We have a chance at it. Saquon said he wants to go for it. But I think the real kind of stickler in this is because, look, if you're going to put Saquon out there, you got to have all hands on deck. So that means your whole offense has to be out there because the last thing you want to do is let them load the box up against him, which they might do anyways. But the last thing you want to do is basically take everything away or not have your full O-line playing, because then it's just now you are really risking injury as far as if you don't have those guys there to protect him. And Lane Johnson, and I love Lane, and I get why he came out and said this, but Lane Johnson saying, hey, no, we don't care about that. We got him his 2,000 yards. I think that right there was Lane saying, no, man, I want a game off. And I don't blame him. Look, O-line, you never know what can happen with them. They get weird injuries, so I get it. But when he said that, I think that was a clear signal, and I think Howie's probably saw that and said, okay, yeah, he wants a game off. We're not going in there with not our full O-line. Everyone's taking off. And as a Philly fan, I like it because I think, again, I'm all for getting rest. As a fan of the player, or if I'm the player, again, I'm pissed. And even as a fan of Saquon at this point, I'm upset for him because, look, well, granted, the team's goal is to win Super Bowls. Super Bowls, as far as for running backs, it doesn't have a ton of value. Now, again, holding this rushing record that's been up there for 40 years, that is something that gets you, that's a Hall of Fame notch. you're the all-time rushing leader. Like when you get up for the Hall of Fame, that is a big check mark on your side of yes, right? Of getting into the Hall. And so while Super Bowls, it's like, yeah, sure, but it's not really a needle mover as far as like in a big way. To me, it's more of like a hair splitter as far as like, oh, okay, maybe it pushes him over. The all-time leading rusher definitely is a big notch for your super or for your Hall of Fame. And when I look at it, man, like there's a good chance that if he gets that rushing record, it might not get broken. Just because in the league that in the NFL that we're in now, you just don't see running backs last a very long time. And with the amount of running backs, it's where it's running back by committee. I mean, we even see it with, you know, these like top end running backs, right? Where Derrick Henry, 20 rushes a game. Bijan, his backup is getting 12, 13 rushes a game. Like the Lions, Gibbs, I would say he is by far their best running back. They split carries. So it's just with that being the way the NFL has predominantly gone, there's a good chance that record is up there for a long time, possibly like not getting broken, in my opinion. And so again, that's something that keeps your like that being having your name there for, last one stood for 40 years and running backs aren't getting more carries per game. So again, I just think as an Eagles fan, I get it. And I get the overall goal is the Super Bowl, but I wanted to see him do it as an athlete. I wanted to see him go for that record because again, I think that there's a chance it doesn't fall again. And so, feel bad for Saquon, man. Clearly, he wanted to go for it. Obviously, Saquon, though, professional, said, obviously I want to go for it, but whatever they decide I'm going to rest, so I'm going to rest. And just think it's really unfortunate, though. And then lastly, as far as with this MVP, what I want to talk about is, look, and I talked about Darnold last episode, so we'll touch on him a little bit. But the other guy where I just don't get why he's not getting the nods from the possibility of getting MVP, and Darnold and Goff both hand in hand. But it's Jared Goff, man. Like, look, when we look at him, we went through Darnold stuff last week. Fourth in passing yards, fourth in yards per pass, fourth in yards per game, fifth in touchdowns, fifth in passer rating. Well, let me give you a bigger one. Goff, second in passing yards, second in yards per pass, fourth in yards per game, third in completion percentage, fourth in touchdowns, second in passer rating. And so I think either of these guys, I think personally, to me, with Saquon resting, with Josh taking this last game not off, I think if he would have taken it off, I almost feel like it would have helped his MVP chances more. And with Lamar just having that kind of, oh, well, he got last year's and, narrative's not really fitting. And we kind of subtract points when they win. And so I think the winner of this game, Lions-Vikings, barring the quarterback just not playing well, whatever quarterback wins that game, as long as they keep up like what they've been doing in this game, that should be the MVP. So to me, I think the Vikings win this game. I think Darnold has a monster game against that Lions defense. I think Darnold should have a legitimate chance at this MVP. But again, like I said, if the Lions do win this, my guess is Goff would have to have had a great game. And like I said, both of them, their numbers as far as on a per game basis, total basis, they line up as far as what an MVP would look like. And so to me, I think either of those guys should have a legitimate chance, whichever one wins that NFC North division. Again, there'll be a 15-win team tied for the second best or tied for the best record, or will have the second best record in the league. And so to me, that they should be MVPs, or at least be in that conversation. And so lastly, man, we're going to talk about this battle for the NFC South. Oh, you know what? Not lastly. We got one more, but talk about this battle for the NFC South. And so, look, Falcons, Panthers, Bucks, and Saints, both of them playing on Sunday. And so, big question, man, who's going to win this division? Falcons or Bucks? And so, to me, I think the Falcons, when they lost that last week, I think it sent them out. I think the Bucks win this division, and I like that because look, as far as in the playoffs, who I think is more dangerous, I think the Falcons are first round done, can't beat anybody. I think the Bucks can have a legitimate chance of being in that divisional round or conference championship game. Divisional round. I think the Bucks have a chance to get to that conference championship game. I think with the weapons they have, Mike Evans, like they can break a game open, and Baker's been playing at an incredible level all year. You add Bucky Irving to that mix, and it's just, man, like they can beat, to me, they can beat anybody in the NFC. And so, whereas I think the Falcons are, you know, dead on arrival, I think the Bucks have a legit chance. Now, would I pick them to win the NFC? No. But look, they're going to have home field in the first round, possibly second round, depending on what happens. But yeah, to me, I just think they're a more dangerous team, and I think it makes for better playoffs with them in it. Now, lastly, in the NFL, man, we're going to talk about the Jets. Again, I think I said it last time, the gift that keeps on giving. So, look, Jets, Vrabel interviewed for him. Rex Ryan's set to interview for him. And to me, I just want to go over like who I think the best fit is for that job and who I think should take it. And so, for me, I think as far as if we're looking for a fit, a culture setter, just a coach who can take them into winning, I think it's Vrabel, hands down, no doubt. But I don't think he should take it. I think Rex Ryan should be the guy who's taking this job. And it's more so because I think Vrabel will have a better opportunity at a better job. The Jets' job, to me, we've talked about it, with the meddling of ownership, the meddling of his kids, whoever the GM is going to be. I don't think, again, a good GM I don't think should take that job, so I don't think they're going to get a good GM. So to me, if you're Vrabel, you should be able to basically pick a better job, because he's going to be a top candidate for any job opening. And so I think he should wait. Now, the reason I think Rex Ryan should take it is because I don't think he's going to get another job. I think this is going to be his only chance at an NFL job. And now, look, while I think he can come in and be a culture setter, I don't think he moves the needle for him. I don't think he's going to bring them into any kind of winning culture at all. And so as far as who should take it, Rex Ryan, because, again, I don't see another NFL team that's going to be bringing him in for interviews or would give him a job. And so if I'm Vrabel, I wait. If I'm Rex Ryan, I take it just because it gets you back in the NFL. Clearly he wants to coach, and it gets you back in the NFL and, obviously see what you can do. I think it's going to be a disaster if he comes in as the head coach, because the Jets are a disaster and it's what it is. And so, man, look, as we always do when we finish up the NFL, we're going to do our top 5 going into the week. And so here we go. Number 1, we got the Chiefs, man. Best team in the league, best record in the league, sitting everybody, going to have a couple weeks off. Best QB, best coach, like better weapons than last year. And it comes back that Reed, their second corner, where that's been the big struggle for them this year, is that second corner spot, and teams with 2 weapons. He's been taken off the injury reserve. So now he's going to be eligible to play in the playoffs. Huge for them if he plays, because that's been one of their big weaknesses. So now you have the Chiefs, who, better than last year, just get their second best DB back in one of their weakest spots. So to me, they stay number 1. 2, the Ravens. And look, it's tough because the Ravens are one of those teams that they're going to be playing their starters this week, and because they got to win. And so just like every other team playing their starters this week, you're risking being banged up going into the playoffs, and that's why you can't drop games to the Raiders and things like that you should win. Because obviously you'd much rather want to rest this week. But still dangerous. They're playing well. That defense has shown up, so that's why they move up. 3, Eagles. Again, there's going to be predicated on Jalen, who still hasn't cleared concussion protocol, which is kind of weird to me, but he should be ready for the playoffs next week, would be my guess. And yeah, we'll have to see where that goes. But defense has played great. The game against the Commanders, notwithstanding, but came out, made a statement against the Cowboys last week. So they're 3. Number 4, Vikings. Man, look, Sam Darnold has shown to me that he's the real deal. And that coaching staff, that defense, those weapons, I think they're one of the most complete teams outside of the Chiefs and Eagles, really. And number 5, the Bills. Bills is just tough, man. I still don't fully believe in their defense. So I think they can get got. But again, like I feel, to me, outside of the Chiefs, 2 through 5, you could really interchange. You can make great arguments for all of them. But number 5, I have the Bills. And then lastly, man, we're going to finish up here with some NBA. And so we got, Spurs Nuggets coming tonight. Wemby versus Jokic should be a great matchup, man. Wemby has been cooking lately. And, it's one of those kind of, Jokic is the best player in the league. Wemby is trying to become the best player in the league. I think Wemby is going to look at this as another statement game. The problem is, Jokic, I mean, he puts up numbers against Wemby. Now, look, Wemby's length can bother him at times, but Jokic puts up numbers. I'm sure Wemby's going to get a couple blocked shots. And obviously, Wemby's he's been doing whatever he wants offensively over the last, little while. So he's going to get his points. I think Jokic has a big game. I think Wemby has a big game, and we'll have to see who comes out the winner on it. Next, man, Jimmy Butler. Ask him for a trade. Basically came out saying, he doesn't have any joy. He won't get any joy playing for the Heat. And Heat suspend him 7 games. Look, to me, Jimmy Butler has kind of become known for this. And I hate to say it because I like Jimmy. I think he's dope. I think he's a good person. But he just, over the last couple stops is kind of what he does, and I think he rubs people the wrong way with how he is, I think. And in that culture with Pat Riley, I think you're talking about 2 very, very dominant personalities kind of going at each other. And so, obviously they're going to try to make it work and try to get him out and traded. And Warriors would be an interesting point, but the Heat want Kuminga. Look, to me, if I'm the Warriors, it's what it is. If you think Jimmy Butler is a needle mover for you in the West, which, look, rough couple weeks for the Warriors since they had that hot start. I think Jimmy Butler, I think he's a needle mover, and I think you got to go for winning now with Steph. So I think you make that trade. But again, we'll have to see. The Warriors have never operated with Steph after KD in a way of going all in to try to maximize what prime he has left. And so we'll see what happens, but I think that would be the top landing spot for him. I think he would want to be there. I think it's a very player-friendly kind of team organization. So, but again, it's just, to me, where Jimmy, he became kind of a Heat legend for a little while. And I just think it's what he does. I think he sunk that for him. And look, it's a lot like Harden. Jimmy is now kind of becoming that player where it's like he's known to just force his way out. And so unfortunate for, kind of what it's going to look like for him legacy-wise. But at the same time, I think if he would have stayed with the Heat, it would have been great because he would have been a Heat legend without a championship. But from an overall legacy, I don't think he's the level of player where we really care about his legacy. So lastly, man, with the NBA, LeBron tied Michael for 30-point games, has a chance to pass him in 30-point games tonight. And look, it's what it is, man. I'm not going to sit here and talk about, does this make him the GOAT? To me, he's already the GOAT. Y'all know how I feel about that whole conversation. I think if you got LeBron, if you got Mike, if you got Kareem, as your GOAT, you have a legitimate case. Like all three of them have legitimate cases. I don't think this is gonna move needles for to bring guys who are Jordan GOAT people to LeBron GOAT people. But look, incredible stat. Anyways, obviously more games than Jordan. Jordan, you know, more shot attempts per like at a higher clip than LeBron. My biggest thing with it, and the reason I really wanted to talk about it is one, I wanted to talk about the fact of just to kind of put it in perspective of one, I'm going to give Jordan his flowers, how great that record was for Jordan, how great it is for LeBron. And again, just kind of LeBron continuing this streak of like setting records that no one's going to touch. And so, closest active people to this are KD, who's 164 30-point games away, and Giannis, who's almost 300 games behind him. So, two guys, KD probably not going to make it. Giannis would need 3.5 seasons of 30-point games to do it. So again, just speaks to the level that LeBron's playing at, and also speaks to the level of Jordan, where it's like the fact that just the scoring ability that he had, incredible that he had that record for so long. But I'm also going to push back on this whole longevity thing because that's everything. Oh, LeBron, it's just longevity. Look, LeBron is fourth all time in regular seasons games played, and that's behind like a Kareem, I believe, is ahead of him. Karl Malone's ahead of him. So it's not like LeBron is like played so many more regular season games or so much longer than some of these other guys where he's breaking their records. Like Kareem, he broke that record in 20 seasons. I never heard anybody when Kareem set that record being like, well, you know, it's only because of longevity. No, that's a LeBron thing that Jordan guys are trying to use. Like it takes a long time to get a lot of points. Like it's what it is. The facts remain that look, he's still fourth in regular season games played, and he's also been the youngest to every major milestone for points. Now, yes, he came in earlier than a Jordan, came in the same time as a Kobe, but played more. That's just a testament to the level of player he was compared to them at that time in their career. Like it's what it is. Like you can try to say oh well he played more. Well, yeah, he was better. And so to me, man, it's just awesome that he's still out there doing this. I mean, he had 30 last game. If he gets 30 tonight, I mean, it'd be, again, like just incredible as far as what he's able to do at his age. And so big shout out to him, man. But appreciate y'all as always. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, like, subscribe, follow us, interact with us on social media, and we'll see y'all next time.